Hello and welcome to News Central Television. I am Dakbo Adigboye. The top stories at this hour. Ahmed Usman Ododo to be sworn in as new governor of Kogi State. Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau commences investigation into Ibadan Airport runway excursion. And Zimbabwe's opposition leader, Chamisa, seeks fresh start with new party. Details in a moment. We begin the news at this hour in West Africa, where preparations are in top gear for the inauguration and swearing-in ceremony of the next Kogi State Governor, Ahmed Usman Ododo, at the Muhammadu Buhari Square, Lokoja, the state capital. Ododo will be the seventh civilian to occupy the office of the governor since the creation of the state on the 27th of August, 1991, out of Benue and Kwara. Ododo, candidate of the All Progressives Congress, has been declared the winner of the Kogi State governorship election of November 12, 2023. We will bring you more on the inauguration and subsequent bulletins. However, News Central's Marvelous Obomanu joins us from Lokoja, the Kogi State capital, for more on this. Thank you so much for your time, Marvelous. All right, Marvelous, let's get straight to it. Can you keep us up to speed as regards what exactly is going on at the moment?
Well, it is a beehive of activities here at the Muhammadu Buhari Square in Lokoja, the Kogi State capital. And of course, you know that today, the governor-elect of Kogi State, Usman Ododo, will be taken in, will be sworn in today as the seventh democratically elected governor of Kogi State. Now we are still awaiting the arrival of the special guest of honor, talking about the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Kashim Shettima, and he will be coming in with the governor-elect, the deputy governor-elect, and the soon-to-be, outgoing governor Yaya Bello. Right now, they've not come here yet. We are still waiting for them, but we've seen some very important personalities make way to the VIP section. We've seen the different royal fathers of the 21 local government areas in Kogi State. They've arrived. We've also seen different support groups. And of course, we've also seen, different, party support groups. Of course, we see the police parade already on the field. Guests of honor to arrive. So it's been a colorful event right here because we are seeing different people wearing different uniform, wearing different party uniform and all the rest. So it is a beehive of activities. Everyone here is on ground so that the event will kickstart. I can also tell you that the Chief Judge of the Kogi State is here. He will be the one to administer the oath of office, governor-elect.
All right, Marvelous. Now, what do you anticipate as part of the high points of today's event, aside the proper swearing in of the governor himself? And what do you think in his acceptance speech it would address concerning the state?
Anyway, as it is customary, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Kashim Shettima, will be here as a special guest of honor. So it's expected that he will make a speech. Although we don't know the content of his speech, but we'll be anticipating that he'll be making some policy statements here, especially as it regards to Kogi State government. And of course, the sworn-in governor, Usman Ododo, will also make a speech where he'll be making some policy statements. And if there are some commissioners, he'll be announcing their, appointment and some special aids. It will be done here. So aside the swearing in and all the rest, we'll be receiving some speeches from the governor-elect and the vice president, who is a special guest of honor. So we don't know what the content of those speeches may be, but we are sure that they'll be making some very strong statements.
All right, Marvelous Obomanu, thank you so much. Of course, we will be in touch with you.
Welcome.
All right. Now, the Ogun State Police Command says one 37-year-old woman, Bilikisu Kazeem, was killed while some others were kidnapped during an attack along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway on Friday. The incident reportedly occurred at the Bamboo area along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway inward Lagos. Now, among those kidnapped was the chairperson of the Lagos State chapter of the People's Democratic Party, Philip Aivoji, and some other party chieftains. The abductors were demanding 200 million naira for their release. The governorship candidate of the Lagos PDP in the 2023 general election, Abdulaziz Adeniran and Aivoji was taken by hoodlums. Said Aivoji was taken by hoodlums. It described the unfortunate incident as a disturbing dimension to the growing insecurity in the country, especially in the southwest. In the meantime, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the Abia State University, Uturu, that's Professor Godwin Emezue, has been kidnapped. Reports say the Prof was in the company of his wife at the time of the incident on Friday by 7 p.m. in Amachara, that's Umuahia local government area of Abia State, southeast region of Nigeria. Was said to have been whisked off by some yet-to-be-identified men in an SUV Lexus and headed towards Imo and Abia border access. Sources say the wife was spared, but the kidnappers seized an ATM card. The University Registrar, that's Acho Elendu, confirmed the incident, adding that moves are being made to report the incident to the police. At a Lagos Sexual and Domestic Violence Court, the sentence of the founder of Iron Christian Ministry to life imprisonment happened on Friday for rape of a church member. Now, the founder, that's Feyi Daniels, was found guilty of rape and sexual assault by Judge Rahman Oshodi for crimes committed against a female worshipper at the Lagos-based ministry. News Central's Neomani has more.
The Lagos State government arraigned Bishop Oluwafeyi Daniel before the Sexual Offence Court on a 4-count charge of rape contrary to Section 260, subsection 2 of the Criminal Law of Lagos State 2015. The state claimed that the defendant, the founder of Irene Christian Ministry, allegedly committed the offences sometime in June 2020 at Ikota Villa Estate, Lekki, Lagos.
Whether you freeze my accounts or you pay bloggers to speak against me or to write in newspaper, the counsel of Jehovah will stand.
The court found Bishop Daniel guilty and sentenced him to life imprisonment on the first count of rape and 3 years imprisonment on the third count.
The court found him guilty of the fourth count charge against the first complainant. They found him guilty of rape. That carried a life sentence. But the court, in its wisdom, said that the prosecution did not establish enough evidence in the second count of rape against the second complainant. But the court further went to find him guilty of sexual assault against the third complainant, but did not find him guilty of attempted rape.
We want to say thank you to Lagos State government for saying no and zero tolerance to any form of gender-based violence. Today is landmark. This is a victory we didn't see coming. We knew we were going to have victory, but we didn't know it was going to be like this.
This sentencing comes at a time when more church leaders and pastors are being accused of sexual abuse.
It has also told survivors who have been brutalized, who have been, have one way or the other be victimized and traumatized by men of the cloth, that they have a voice and that when they talk, we will listen.
Justice has been served, and this is giving us joy that we can still rely on the justice system of Nigeria. In my own case, and I think that is the only regret I will be having in my life, that I didn't take TB Joshua to court because I was not well guided.
As a man, I'm ashamed that we still have men who feel they can rape women, they can sexually assault women, and nothing will happen. Because see, if you know that the lady you're about to mess up with, if you know this will happen to you, you won't dare.
Sexual rights activists believe the position of trust and authority that clergy hold makes these crimes particularly shocking and deserving of serious consequences. The sentencing of Bishop Daniel is seen as a warning For would-be offenders that sexual crimes will not be tolerated, even for those in leadership positions. The expectation is that all institutions must work to ensure a safe environment for citizens. In Lagos for News Central, Ni Omani.
Earlier on the news, we had Antonia Ojenegbo, the founder of Bruised But Not Broken, a rape survival foundation, on the news, and she had this to say.
Sexual violence is not a religious crime. It's not a family affair. Sexual violence is an offense. And if you live in a state like Lagos State that has zero tolerance for any form of gender-based violence, sexual violence is a crime. It's a crime that will be reported to the police. It's a crime that will be prosecuted in court. It's a crime that when you're found guilty, you will pay for it. The church needs to begin to talk about this. It's happening in the church. You can no longer throw it under the carpet. The church can no longer pretend that these things don't happen. And we're saying that clergy who take advantage of vulnerable people, I mean to say, should be careful because your day of reckoning is coming.
The Lagos State government on Sunday announced a ban on the usage and distribution of styrofoam and other single-use plastics in the state with immediate effect. A statement signed by the Commissioner for the Environment and Water Resources, Tokunbo Wahab, said the decision was reached following the menace that single-use plastics, especially non-biodegradable styrofoam, were causing on the environment. Now, News Central's Bettina Mweli tells us more.
The Lagos State government's recent move to impose a ban on the use of styrofoam is generating reactions, highlighting the complexities of environmental regulations in metropolitan regions.
I don't feel happy at all. I feel bad because there's some people that is only what they sell. If they stop it, how are they going to make their livelihood living?
It's very, very okay because it's causing a lot of dirty around. People don't keep them. As soon as they use them, they don't dispose them properly.
Me personally, I'm not feel happy. Actually, if we stop it, where are we going to start? Because some of us, that is where we'll eat in our family. So government or states, whatever, they will know what to do to stop people that are using it along the road to sell.
Styrofoam, also recognized as expanded polystyrene, has served as a widely used packaging material for many years, owing to its lightweight and effective insulation properties. Foamed polystyrene is made into insulation, packaging, and food containers such as beverage cups, egg cartons, and disposable plates and trays.
It contains some chemicals that are carcinogenic, and these can, cause cancer and other health-associated risks. When it comes to styrofoam, it is long overdue for the ban.
Over the last few decades, there have been multiple debates about whether plastic foam, also known as polystyrene, is biodegradable or not. From start to finish, plastic foam production relies on harsh chemicals.
Now that the styrofoam has been banned, so you're going to think outside the box, invest in your R&D research, and also help bring innovative solutions, innovative and sustainable packaging material. So we also have, as part of alternative, you don't want to eat in or bring your own plate. You can also purchase their bamboo products that are made from bamboo material, really. So you can also use bamboo plates, you can use your stainless plates, so there are actually many, even paper plates. There are some paper plates that are actually very biodegradable and eco-friendly, so you can also use that as an alternative to using styrofoam.
While the jury may be out for an exact amount of time, the unsettling truth is that polystyrene does not decompose. It's not a question about how long it takes, but rather about understanding just how dangerous the cycle of plastic foam is. In Lagos for News Central, Bettina Mwili.
We'll go on a quick break. When we return, we have more stories. Stay with us. The Nigerian government has concluded plans to rename the Ministry of Information to the Ministry of Information and National Orientation in order to help drive the adoption of key national values. This was as the Minister of Information received a new national charter from the National Orientation Agency as part of efforts to drive national rebirth. Now, News Central's Amadine Uyi tells us more.
Nigeria, the largest country in Africa, also has the largest youth population in the world. With a median age of 18.1 years, about 70% of Nigeria's over 200 million population is under 30, while 42% is under the age of 15. While many of these youths remain unemployed, Nigeria has also suffered from high levels of insecurity perpetrated by these youths. Thus, they need to answer fundamental questions many believe are affecting the fabric of the nation.
How can we correct these abnormalities and chart a new path that will lead us to the great hearts that we truly belong to? How do we forge national cohesion and unity from our differences? How do we build a reputational capital out of our country, at home and abroad? How do we ensure that the right behaviors and attitudes are the ones that are celebrated?
With insecurity and crime at an all-time high in Nigeria, the need for national reorientation and the adoption of a value charter has become apt. Nigeria's federal government recently received a value charter from the nation's National Orientation Agency, expected to drive wide-scale reforms and national rebirth.
This event marks another milestone in our evolution as a nation, bringing our various subnational values together to create a national culture that speaks to our common destiny.
The components of the Charter are not new inventions. These national values are time-tested precepts that have guided our people and societies for centuries. However, we have not made any conscious effort in the past to aggregate our various subnational values and cultures to evolve a national culture that will guide our lifestyle as a people.
The value charter issue, as we know as Nigerians, is a critical component of any sustainable development in the country. Because no matter the level of infrastructural development and sustainable development, it has to be premised on some foundation.
Nigeria's Minister of Information says government is committed to implementing recommendations made in the charter and will change the name of its information ministry to reposition it to drive national reorientation.
I have the assurances of the National Orientation Agency, led by its able chief executive, that various innovative approaches and socialization strategies will be employed, and to ensure that the charter becomes part and parcel of our personal and collective existence as Nigerians. In his desire and in his quest to reorient Nigerians, the President has chosen to rechristen or to rename the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation. The emphasis here is on national orientation.
The charter contains 7 core promises from government to citizens, including 7 commitments expected from citizens to the nation. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
No fewer than 140 officials will track and assess the performance of federal ministries, departments, and agencies ahead of the first assessment exercise at the end of this month. This is as the officials join the 3rd technical retreat for delivery desk officers of federal ministries on the implementation of the presidential priorities and ministerial deliverables in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State capital, which began on Wednesday. A senior official working closely with the Central Delivery Coordination Unit, headed by the Special Advisor to the President on Policy Coordination, Adiza Bala Usman, said the officers who would conduct the assessment were drawn from 35 federal government ministries, departments, and agencies. She added that Tinubu is poised to deliver on his promise of making life better and easier for Nigerians. The Nigerian government has stated the need to ensure strict regulation of tobacco industries in accordance with the country's legislation and global best practices. The Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Ali Pate, disclosed this recently in Lagos at the formal launch of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission Tobacco Control Advocacy Campaign, tagged Don't Burn Their Future. Now, the minister explained that tobacco harms national economies, sustainable development and environment, as well as reinforces, recycles and perpetrates poverty, especially among low-income earners who invest their monies to service their tobacco addiction. Pate said the tobacco industry, in ensuring that its business remained profitable, had harnessed its energy in flooding the markets with newer products, while often circumventing the law in tobacco advertisement, promotions and celebrity endorsement, and also corporate social responsibility and recruits of new users. Now, to further discuss this, I am joined by Okbolu Ataiwo, an economic analyst and executive director, Africa Bridge Initiative. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you for having me today.
All right, great. Now, the minister explained that tobacco harms national economies, sustainable development and environment, as well as reinforces, recycles and perpetrates poverty. What is your take?
Now, so for the minister, what the minister have asserted is very accurate at this time of our economy as a nation, because, you know, we have more than 60% of our workforce being the middle age, talking about the youth, and the tobacco is more or less combating that workforce. But you must also understand that there are economic gains involved in the business, because tobacco is a business and it's a global business. You know, talking about the origin, talking about the Spanish, talking about the Indians, talking about China being the largest producer and consumer of tobacco in the world. Now, the question is, what is the contribution of tobacco as a subsector to our GDP as a nation? Don't forget, we usually make revenue, especially the excise duties from tobacco, and which has always been one of the biggest revenue through the excise duties because of the importation and because of the consumption within the economy. But up to now, the tobacco as a subsector has not yet been part of the biggest contributor to our GDP. Our GDP is still relying on oil. Our GDP is relying on agric. Our GDP is relying on the real estate. So what does that mean? That shows to us that the negative impact of tobacco is more than the economic gain and the revenue that the government is talking about. So I'm still in line with the minister that we need to combat the influx of tobacco in our economy, and most especially because we are not a producing economy. We are a consuming economy, and that is actually killing our economy, both at the macro and the micro level.
Now, to what extent do you think that tobacco control policies can help reduce poverty?
Now, one thing you must understand, tobacco contributes greatly to poverty. How? As of today, as of 2023, we're talking about the GDP of Nigeria are $1.2 trillion. And out of that $1.2 trillion, a lot of inflation has gone into those figures. As of today, we're talking about 28.9% as our inflation. Now, when we talk about tobacco, the first thing you should look at is, are we producing tobacco? The answer is no. Are we consuming tobacco? The answer is yes. Now, let's look at the ratio. What is the ratio of the importation to our consumption? When we look at this, then we understand that when we import tobacco and the government is actually generating revenue, but the adverse effect on the health is leading to poverty. So the ratio is not correlating. The ratio is not commensurating to each other. So you are on one hand, you are generating about, let's say, 20% revenue. And on the other hand, on the health sector, on the health impact and the economic impact, you are losing more than 50% of your workforce. You are losing more than 50% of your revenue. into the health sector as a result of the consumption of tobacco. So you can see that tobacco has brought more danger than good to our economy. So we need to reduce the influx of tobacco in Nigeria. And as well also, we can't stop the consumption, but we can reduce the influx of tobacco into our economy.
What would be the potential economic impact of a successful tobacco control campaign?
Now, tobacco is a subsector. One thing you should understand is that most of our sectors, we talk about the agri sector, health sector, education sector, most of our sector are not yet regulated accordingly and adequately. And that is why we're having challenge. Because as of today, there's no data telling us the number of tobacco being consumed every day in Nigeria. There's no data telling us how much we are making on daily basis on tobacco. There's no data telling us how many tobacco is coming into this country. So we can see that regulating that market will have a good impact on the economy. But we must also be aware that there are various multinational companies who are involved in this importation, not just in Nigeria, talking about Ghana, talking about West Africa. But regulating that market is key to our economy. Because if you don't regulate that economy, your workforce will be down with kidney failure. Your workforce will be down with heart diseases. And what will happen? You'll be spending more on the health sector, and the subsector is killing the economy. So we need to regulate that market in order not to spend too much on maintenance of heart diseases and kidney failures among the workforce of Nigeria economy.
Now, are there any industries or businesses that stand to benefit from a reduction in tobacco consumption?
All right, so when you reduce the influx or the intake of tobacco, the revenue will go down. That's number one. It will affect revenue. That's crucial. So we can't deviate from that because revenue is key to running government. That's crucial. But we must also understand that when we reduce the consumption or we control the influx of tobacco, the health sector will be healthy. That means the billions of dollars WHO is giving us on monthly basis, yearly basis, into our health sector. There will be surplus budget for the health sector.
All right.
So
now,
that means the educational sector, the agri sector can benefit from the influx of funds that is coming to the health sector. So it's going to be a win-win transaction for the federal government and various stakeholders within that subsector of the economy.
Now, do you think that tobacco control policies, might have an unintended negative consequence on the economy?
Yes, absolutely. It will have unintended and unpredictable negative tendencies on the economy. It's certain. And major reason is because we don't have a data. That's the major challenge. It might not affect it directly, but because we don't have a data, so we won't know what to do to cushion the effect when it comes in. So regulating or combating or reducing the influx of a particular product in Nigeria is not the number one solution. The number one solution is let's generate data. Let's have stakeholder data engagement for us to know that when we reduce the influx of this particular subsectoral product into our economy, what will be the impact on the agri sector? What will be the impact on the educational sector? What will be and like you can say, the entertainment sector. Don't forget, the entertainment sector will suffer a lot because there are a lot of people in the entertainment sector who are relying on the intake of tobacco. So you can see that it's a dicey situation, but we must have a robust conversation around that subsector industry before we can have a strong regulatory power or force on the influx of tobacco. So the government must do more than just ordinary writing policy papers.
All right, now before I let you go, let's talk about the consumers themselves, right? Many a times it's a situation of choice, and in spite of the ads we see, I mean, if you pick up a pack of cigarettes right now, you would even see graphical illustration of what your lungs would most likely look, like if you continue taking that particular product, but yet you still see people take it. So what do you think can be done concerning, because if there is no demand, right, I want to believe that by the law of economics, there won't be supply. So how do you tackle that from the consumer perspective?
All right, so from the consumer perspective, you must understand that there is a demand and there is supply. At the same time, there are chains of business within that subsector. So the consumers will not accept the regulatory power of the government. You must understand that. The consumer will be annoyed because the consumers are part of people who are encouraging multinational companies to bring in this product into the Nigerian economy. Even though on the paper, like you said, it is written that smokers are liable to die young. But yet, smokers, young Nigerians are still indulging in this menace because it's already becoming a social menace that is beyond control. And the government must understand that when bringing out a policy to regulate this subsectoral industry, the consumer will fight back because the consumer believes that if I cannot afford an expensive alcohol, if I cannot afford an expensive drug, I should go for tobacco. So you can see that poverty is one of the reasons why people go into tobacco drug. Poverty is one of the reasons. So you can see that there are a lot of, that's why I said that we need to have a stakeholder data engagement before we have a strong and drastic stick on that sector, that is the tobacco. So the government must understand that there will be a fight back from the consumer because the consumer are poor and they believe that the only substance that can assist their poverty is tobacco, which is not correct, which is false. But advocacy is needed at this very critical moment. As well, on the other hand, on one hand from the government, let them have the data-driven engagement. On another hand, there must be strong advocacy on the danger of tobacco, on the poverty increment rate of tobacco, because the more you consume tobacco, the more you will be looking for cash to treat yourself. That means tobacco you are running to because you are poor will make you poorer. So we have to say no to tobacco consumption in Nigeria.
Akwaoluwa Taiwo, an economic analyst and of course the executive director, Africa Bridge Initiative. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you for having me.
All right. Now, the Nigerian government has deployed air accident investigators in Ibadan to unravel the circumstances that made a private jet to overshoot the Ibadan airport runway. The jet departed from Abuja to the Samuel Ladoke Akintola Airport in Ibadan and overshot the runway at around 11 a.m. on Friday. The aircraft, with the registration number N580KR, had missed the runway into the nearby bush. Spokesperson for the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, Carol Adekotujo, who confirmed the incident, said there were no casualties. Airline incidents in Nigeria have been a concern for many years, with numerous accidents and crashes. On November 3rd, 2023, a private jet carrying the Minister of Power, that's Adebayo Adelabu, crash-landed near the Ibadan airport in Oyo State. Now, several arms and ammunition have been recovered from a group of irate youths who tried to attack Air Force personnel deployed to restore law and order to troubled areas of Mango local government area in Nigeria's north-central state of Plateau. Media and Information Officer of Operation Safe Haven, who made this known via a press statement in Jos, the state capital, says the youths had been arrested. Now, News Central's Chizoba Nonwe takes it up from here.
This development is coming on the third day following violent attacks and reprisal attacks in several parts of Mango local government area of Plateau State, with many feared dead and property worth millions of naira destroyed. The Operation Safe Haven, saddled with restoring and enforcing peace on the troubled Plateau, describes the incidents which occurred in the Panyam district of Mango local government area of the state as condemnable and an act of aggression. The incident saw youths launching an attack on troops from the Nigerian Air Force deployed to maintain peace and order during the curfew. The Media and Information Officer of Operation Safe Haven says that the attack is regrettable as it poses an escalation of the conflict and is a significant threat to the safety of both the military personnel attacked and the community at large. He adds that the attack undermines efforts aimed at restoring peace and stability to the entire community. The weapons seized from the youth include one AK-47 rifle, 4 locally fabricated automatic rifles, 1 locally made mortar bomb launcher, 7 empty shells of 7.62 mm, amongst others. In Jos for News Central, I am Chizoba Anyowe.
Staying in West Africa, Burkina Faso has received 25,000 tons of wheat from Russia as part of the 200,000 tons promised by President Vladimir Putin to several African countries. The donation was announced during a pledge made by the Russian president at the second Russia-Africa summit held in St. Petersburg in July 2023. Burkina Faso's Minister of Foreign Affairs says the aid is one of the several testimonies of how the cooperation between his country and Russia aligns with the aspirations of the people.
La présente cérémonie marque l'accomplissement d'une promesse faite en juillet 2023 par son Excellence M. Vladimir Poutine à la faveur du sommet de Saint-Pétersbourg. La cérémonie du jour est un des nombreux témoignages de l'excellence de cette belle coopération qui n'a que de belles promesses alignées sur les aspirations des populations.
Des quantités de blé ont été également livrées en Érythrée, au Mali, en République centrafricaine, en Somalie et au Zimbabwe. En 2023, le Mali a été approvisionné en céréales, carburant et engrais à titre d'aide humanitaire. Notre pays va continuer à contribuer non seulement à l'approvisionnement du Burkina Faso des produits de première nécessité, mais à son autosuffisance alimentaire, énergétique et technologique via le transfert de nos expertises, compétences et savoir-faire.
Coming up on the news, Ethiopia Deputy Prime Minister replaced as Vice President of ruling party. We have details of this and more after the break. News Central now continues in East Africa, where the state media has reported that Ethiopia's long-serving Deputy Prime Minister, Demeke Mekonnen, was dropped on Friday as Vice President of the ruling party, raising doubts about his future role in the government. Demeke, who is also Foreign Minister and hails from the Amachara ethnic group, was replaced in the Prosperity Party by Ethiopia's intelligence chief. The party unanimously elected Temesgen Turane, who heads the National Intelligence and Security Service, in a reshuffle that followed its leadership succession principle and operating system. We also understand that the Meke replacement within the party would mean his departure as Deputy Prime Minister as well. In Southern Africa, Zimbabwe's main opposition leader, Nelson Chamisa, will stay in politics and look to form a new political group. He made this known a day after he quit his own party, denouncing government infiltration. Now, Chamisa, who in August last election he described as fraudulent, to President Emmerson Mnangagwa, said he was ready for a new thrust after leaving the Citizens Coalition for Change on Thursday. He decided to exit the coalition party to form he formed only 2 years ago to draw a line in the sand after it was hijacked by the ruling ZANU-PF party.
We've seen a new infraction, the illegal recall of our members of parliament and even councillors, instigated by Mr. Mnangagwa, instigated by ZANU-PF. Why so? Because they control parliament, they control the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, and of course other state institutions. Which institutions they are using to try and decimate the alternative. As for me, I have nothing to do with a contaminated outfit. I start a new list, and that new list is making sure that as a Zimbabwean, I stand. And of course, like-minded Zimbabweans will also stand. So it's a citizens' movement that we are going to obviously be pushing, and that will continue to be.
We'll go on a quick break. When we return, we have more stories. Stay with us. Hundreds have taken to the streets of Mexico City to demand justice in the case of the 2014 disappearance of 43 Mexican students from the Ayotzinapa Teacher Training College, who were traveling on buses from the southern state of Guerrero to a demonstration in the capital before they went missing. Last year, a truth commissioner tasked by government to investigate the atrocity branded it a state crime and said the military shared responsibility either directly or through negligence. Earlier this week, 8 soldiers detained for the alleged involvement in the case were released from their temporary detention by the Mexican justice.
Nosotros no vamos a descansar, vamos a seguir porque pues por el amor que le tenemos a nuestros hijos vamos a seguir hasta llegar a la verdad y que esos que participaron que paguen pues porque pues no se vale que estos militares que estaban detenidos ya sean liberados.
Y estamos aquí para decirle a este mal gobierno que han pasado más de 8 años.
The Nigerian Ports Authority and the Nigerian Customs Service is set to embrace collaboration in the drive for ports efficiency and competitiveness in support of the country's economic diversification. This was made known at a press briefing held at the Ports Authority headquarters on Thursday in Lagos. Now, News Central's maritime correspondent Neoma Abia State has more.
The Nigerian Ports Authority (NPA) and the Nigerian Customs Service (NCS) have pledged their commitment to work together, deepen trade facilitation, and drive exports as part of measures that will support the Nigerian government's economic diversification agenda. This pledge was made during the Controller General of Customs Bashir Adeni's visit to NPA's headquarters in Lagos. In his remarks, the Managing Director of NPA, Mohammed Bello-Koko, said there is a need to streamline export desks to make facilitation of cargoes on board vessels seamless, as he frowned at the situation where export processing terminals report to the export desk at the seaports. He also applauded the Customs CG's effort for the tremendous increase in percentage in quantity of export cargo seen, but insisted that the issue of multiple export desks needs to be addressed. The NPA boss urged the Customs CG to include the authority as part of agencies of government that would benefit from the proceeds of auctioning overtime cargoes at the port, as huge funds were spent in moving the overtime cargoes from the seaport to the Ikorodu terminal.
The issues of congestion at the port is because we need to make the ports more efficient. We need to be able to clear cargo as quickly as possible. So we have discussed the issue of 24-hour port operations, where we need custom officers to going forward to be working on shift. That way you can have cargo clearing and cargo discharge and other things into the night 24 hours. But for them to do that, it means you need the shipping lines, you also need the terminal operators and security, and everybody needs to actually be on their toes and work 24 hours.
In his response, the Customs CG stated that the visit to the NPA is to renew friendship, deepen existing relationship, and buying into the vision of the NPA to ensure port efficiency and competitiveness, which would help the Customs Service facilitate trade, increase revenue generation, and regain cargoes lost to ports in neighboring countries.
If you deploy scanners to examine goods rather than subject them to 100% examination, that's one way to make them, faster and more efficient. We are building our risk management. We are expanding fast track. We are going to get into AEO in the next, in the first quarter of this year, so that more of our companies will not, have their containers subjected to examination in the port. We are launching a time release study for us to actually determine the time and the costs it takes to clear goods in our ports.
The collaboration is set to improve Nigeria's export earnings, decongest the ports, and aid the facilitation of export cargoes on board ocean-going vessels.
And that's a wrap on the news at this time, but before we go, another look at some of our top stories. We told you that Usman Ododo is set to be sworn in as new governor of Kogi State. We also told you that Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau has commenced investigation into Ibadan Airport runway excursion. And finally, we also told you that Zimbabwe's opposition leader, Chamisa, is seeking a fresh start with a new party. Don't forget to send in your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, StarTimes channel 274, Abo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Dakpo at Digboy.